Hey guys, before we dive into the podcast, I just wanted to give a shout out to one of our new sponsors, Blade Runner Systems. They have a all new Evolve line. They are offering up one of their Evolve Nomad blades for the winner of our men's absolute division. Go ahead and check out our Instagram post about the knife. It looks amazing, and I can't wait to be able to give it away to our absolute division men's winner on the October 26th Flow Sub Only 7. Go ahead and check bladerunnerssystems.com to check those guys out, and go on their Instagram and give them a follow. Thanks, guys, and enjoy the show. Hello and welcome to the Flow BJJ podcast. I'm here again with Ben Moore. How you doing today, Ben?
Doing great. I love it. It's a Monday.
It is. It's a Monday. So today we are going to talk about white belts, and we're going to kind of dive into our thoughts on recommendations, tips, how to improve quickly, discussing ego, tapping, basically anything that comes to mind. All things white belt, from day one to your first competition to what you need to do to get to blue belt, all that stuff. So I'm going to start us off with the very first thing. I want to talk about tapping out, because you walk into your first class, and if you're not familiar with tapping, then you can get hurt right away.
Pretty quickly.
So in general, and this can be white belt specific, but really it's a broader thing. What are your thoughts on tapping, and where is that line? And what do you think?
I think like most things in jiu-jitsu, there's a line of where you're at, like kind of personally. And I think that dictates a lot of things, like if you're a competitor and you want to get to the higher echelons of IBJJF, so flow sub only, whatever it is, I think you should train where you shouldn't tap as much, and not to injure yourself, but to really get to the edge of that sort of threshold, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then when you should absolutely tap in a tournament, and you get a little bit of a better idea there. But if you're not competing at all, and you're somebody who goes a couple times a week for fun, for fitness, for somewhere in the middle of competitor and fitness and fun, I think tapping often is great for learning. And I think, you don't have to sit in a rear naked choke if you're the recipient of a rear naked choke and you're just trying to survive for 3 minutes, and their arm is around your neck, and you can probably survive another 30 seconds, maybe a minute, or an arm bar, whatever it is. For me, I'd if they have the position flawless, they're controlling it great. I've tried my escapes. None of them are working. We've done the checklist in my head. I go, I'm tapping. Cool. I'm not wasting my time. I have another 2 minutes on the clock. That's 2 minutes I can work a passing sequence or whatever it is. And that's my nerd brain sort of utilizing time efficiently.
Yeah.
Especially if you're only coming twice a week, right? If you only have so much mat time that you have because you're busy, you have kids, you work, whatever the case may be, utilize that mat time as best you can, right? At that point, tap as much as you can, so you can try things as much as you can.
Well, I think it's important for new people to realize that tapping is, it's not you're not defeated because you tapped, if we're talking competition, sure. When you tap, you have lost, but in general, when you're training, that's a key word, is training. You're practicing, and if you're either never tapping, or you're not getting into bad enough spots to have to tap, it's not going to help you grow quickly.
I agree.
Maybe it's an ego thing, or maybe it's who knows, but there's a lot of high level guys that brag about how often they tap, and that's because they put themselves in bad spots. They maybe the first 10 times they're not able to escape it, but then on the 11th time they can escape it, and now they're collecting data, which I feel like is the more important thing.
Exactly. Yeah. I think it's maybe combining what we said. Maybe it's a bell curve. Like in the beginning, you tap a lot. In the middle of this bell curve, you try to not to tap as much as you can to see where your threshold is of the tap.
Hmm.
And then later on in that bell curve, you again tap as much as you can because you're really mining for data and what really works
Mm-hmm.
and what doesn't. And so maybe that's a good way to look at it.
I agree. I think also there's two different there's two different ways or reasons for delaying taps. One of them being valid and one not, and that's like you mentioned with the rear naked choke. Are you not tapping just to see how long you can take before you avoid passing out, or are you not tapping because you're actively working the escape that is a technical move that you're trying to pull off, but the
Mm.
person is delaying it and it's taking you longer to implement the escape, you know?
Mm.
If you're just someone's on your back, they have a fully locked in rear naked choke, they've got you in a body triangle, you're not moving, you're just simply pulling down on the forearm to try to delay the inevitable. Not topping for that reason is not accomplishing anything. But if you're actively defending your neck, trying to unhook the body triangle, trying to move your hips and misalign the spine and escape, that's a different thing, you know?
Yeah, I agree with that. I think it comes down to being intentional with how you're training, and I think everybody should go into the gym pretty intentional with what they're going to spend their time with and what they want to do. And you see that coming from people who can only go twice a week to people who go twice a day,
Mm-hmm.
and both of them have different goals and different times and different amount of time that they can spend on the mat. And so I think if you're intentional with your time, and maybe that day you're like, today I'm going to wait until the very end and tap
Mm-hmm.
because I'm training for this tournament and I want to see how I go. Okay, great. But if like you're there on a Tuesday, you had a horrible day at work or something, and you're just like, I'm just here to have fun and like chill. Yeah, tap all the time, man. That's great. No one's gonna judge you. This is the one thing I think people don't realize. No one's going to judge you if you tap early or late.
Right.
Like unless it's your instructor because he knows. And one thing your instructor is always doing is knowing where you are, right, in your journey. So he knows you're going to compete. So if you tap too early, he might make fun of you for tapping too early because you're going to compete this weekend.
Right.
So he's trying to bring you back onto that track of where you're at in your journey at all times.
I also I agree with that completely. I think that you have to balance, and I feel like this is the case in a lot of jiu-jitsu, not just in this specific area, but there's a risk reward
Mm-hmm.
factor, you know, and
Oh yeah.
if we're trying to escape a rear naked choke and the penalty for waiting too long to tap is that you pass out, which generally speaking is people are going to laugh. But 5 seconds later, you're probably going to be okay. You may or may not roll, you know, immediately again, but
Right.
the penalty for tapping is not severe. The penalty for not tapping soon enough to a straight arm lock or a heel hook or something like that is can be catastrophic. We're talking about, you know,
Yes.
a year off from training, medical bills, you know, all that stuff. So you got to have a good reason why you're not tapping, and you got to kind
Yeah.
of balance that in your head, you know.
Yeah. Your the insurance hasn't developed a specific jujitsu based insurance yet.
Right.
So 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 it's not like they're going to understand when you come in with a broken arm and you're like, I was just training. Like you can fix this in no time, right? They're going to look at you and go, why did you break your arm? That's
Hmm.
so like now you're going to spend so much time off the mats fixing it, everything else. Like not every physical therapist, not every surgeon is sports focused. So
Right.
you're going to go somewhere and they're going to be like, you're stupid, you broke your arm.
And even if they are, you know, sports focused, you know, a lot of those people deal with baseball players, football players, basketball players.
Mm,
They're not specifically dealing with the person on the receiving end or giving end is trying to break one of your limbs on purpose, you know,
right.
and you're letting them and you're not tapping.
Yeah.
That's kind of a hard one to explain to the doctor. Like, well, how did this happen? Well, the guy was hyperextending my elbow and I didn't ask him to stop.
Yeah. Explaining jujitsu objectively to people can be a difficult task
Yeah.
like without them being like, so you did all of that on purpose, and you're like, oh yeah, and I paid money to do that, and
Yeah.
they're like, I don't understand. And I look at runners the same way. I'm like, and you spend your time doing all of those miles? Like,
Right.
I don't understand.
Yeah. Yeah. And going through the like the pain and suffering of the those marathons or ultra marathons and like it's crazy.
Yeah, and this comes from someone who used to be a distance runner, and I get where they're coming from, and I'll still be like, I don't know why you did that.
Right. Yeah.
I don't know why I did it.
So in a similar vein to tapping, I want to talk about the attempt. And this again, this is not just white belts; it's really everyone. But how do you feel? What's the perfect balance between ego and humility on the mats? Because I feel like you
Mm,
can skew too far in either of those directions. I feel like it's worse to skew drastically towards ego, but also there's something to be said about skewing too far towards humility and not, trying to implement what you want to do and being just kind of too passive.
yeah, that's actually a really good point, and a really good question. I think everybody says leave your ego at the door, and I feel like that. Like in my life, I think that's been said a billion times. You know,
Yes. Yeah.
leave your ego at the door. I've seen signs of it. I've seen instructors, old and young, say it. And I think, like most rules in life, like it's a good guideline, right? Like if you always think that way, I think you'll be balanced. But everybody is going through life with an ego. Like it's hard to just absolutely turn it off. And I think it's healthy to have control of your ego.
Mm.
Maybe that's, I don't know if control is the right word, but I think that's a great thing to think about is like, I have an ego. Sometimes an ego is needed to win the match. You
Yep.
know, sometimes you need to get, you need to think that you're bigger than you are in order to get past that moment in the match and win.
Mm.
There's no doubt about that. But to then be mad if like a blue belt tapped you because you got caught in something, that's your fault. It's not their, like, I give them like for me as a black belt, like my ego, and maybe I have an unhealthy, the opposite direction where I need more ego. But if a blue belt catches me in something, I'll be like, oh hell yeah, dude! Like you show me that. That's so cool.
Mm. I don't think that's too humble. I think that is good when that happens, to a certain extent.
Mm,
I think ego in that you are so focused on yourself that nothing else matters is like that's an extreme version of that. But you got to focus on learning, not winning when you're in
mm,
training. And you have to remember that it's training. So winning is not the end goal.
right.
I have not often because we have a very ingrained culture in our gym, but I occasionally have, a white belt that comes up to me and is proud and like, yeah, I tapped out so and so who is, a colored belt of some sort. And it's like,
Yeah.
oh, cool. Okay. Like, like great. You've got some confidence, but let's remember that this is training, and I keep saying that word.
Mm,
It's training with a teammate, and the focus is learning, not winning. And not to
right.
say that you're not attempting to get the finish or to tap out someone, but if you hyper focus on winning, what tends to happen in my experience is people end up in this very narrow game of jiu-jitsu where they have, one guard pass, one submission, one control, and they
Mm,
end up in this rut where they follow the same path to a submission or attempted submission, and they don't broaden their horizons and work on things that they're not as good at because their ego doesn't allow that.
yeah. Good point. Good point. Yeah, I think building that culture is so important. Like leading by example. Like if someone went up to me and they're like, "Man, I tapped Austin on something," like I'm not gonna tell them, "Man, I think Austin probably let you." Maybe because then that's also bad, right? Like I'm not going to make them feel bad about that either. But you have to lead by example,
Mm,
and that's when I go, "Great, man," and then just next topic.
right.
Like don't even lean into it. Don't even give them praise. It's like it's kind of like behavioral dog pattern training where you're like you give positive reinforcement to the good things and you just ignore the bad things.
Mm-hmm.
Eventually they're like, oh, I don't like doing the bad things because I don't get positive reinforcement. So if you help a white belt, I'll be like, hell yeah, dude, thank you, purple belt, for helping the white belt. So now I'm incentivizing that purple belt to help more people with positive reinforcement, hopefully.
Mm, yep.
Because everybody needs to be the therapist or the chaperone of a white belt at some point.
Right. No, I think, well, I think that's a good part of growing too as a teammate and as a practitioner is once you do get into those mid-level or higher level belts, it's very important to help foster a good community for the people coming in, you know,
Mm. Yeah.
because things can go south very quickly if you don't keep that in check and you don't bring white belts along and show them the ropes. And you're right, you're not going to just say, well, I'm sure they let you get that submission, but at the same time you can kind of just give them a little bit of a grin, like just enough to make them think maybe he was letting me work a little bit, or maybe he wasn't going full speed. I think that culture is super important, which leads me to the next question regarding white belts is how do you pick a good first gym or a good gym in general
Mm.
if you have no grappling experience, you don't really know what you're looking for. So do you have any recommendations on how to pick a gym?
Man, that's such a great question because it's hard to know something that you don't know.
Mm,
And that's really what it boils down to is like, how do I choose the right gym? Well, you've never even done jujitsu, so you don't even know what you're looking for. And
which
if
is
you're
a
listening to this
sidebar. I think
podcast,
that's why so many, we call them McDojos, exist because people
mm,
don't know what they're looking for. They don't know what they're seeing if they've never done it before.
right? Um, yeah, I'm just thinking, man, it's so interesting. Yeah, if you're trying to look for a new gym nowadays, it's going to be the best, like way better than before, right? If you talked about 10 years ago in Maine, there was like a handful of gyms in the entire state.
Right.
And now there's a handful of gyms in the greater Portland area.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's awesome. So in the spirit of like, how do I find a new gym? Maybe try as many gyms as you can and see what sort of stays in your, like what you think is vibing the best for your personality, how you feel in the gym, because you're going to spend a lot of time there. You're going to spend a lot of time with the people there, the instructor, how intense, how, motivating are they? Like, you're going to have a different evaluation of that personally than somebody else.
Mm,
And if you are in a space where there's only a few, like one gym within 2 hours, well, then you kind of have a tough choice because you only have one gym.
mm.
But that was 10 years ago for most places, and now the growth of the sport is so awesome where you just have so many gyms in any area now that I never thought would pop up.
It's
So
it's pretty 10 years ago, it was pretty commonplace to have to drive at least an hour to train somewhere.
yep,
So people
yep,
now are kind of spoiled in that, like, they should be able to find a pretty reputable gym that's under 30 minutes away from them, or hopefully even less than that. Not
yeah,
always, but there's some northern Maine areas that are pretty vast where there's not a gym. But
mm-hmm.
I also feel like just because a gym is a high quality gym, it might still not necessarily be the right gym for you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Which it's important to visit, like you said, visit multiple gyms, try them out. I think that most gyms probably have a free class or a free couple of weeks or something, you know, or even if you need to pay a drop in to train there,
yeah,
you know, at a minimum observe, even if you're not training there, observe the culture, observe the coach, the students, how they act, see if you vibe with them.
yeah,
Because in a way, I feel like the vibe of a gym and the style is one of the things that are going to make or break if you continue in jiu-jitsu, you know?
yeah. I have seen so many students that will try one gym or the other. Maybe they try our gym or not. I'm not going to point those fingers, but like then they settle somewhere else. And They have a great time. They end up being such a natural athlete at the sport, which is different from being a natural athlete. You can still be good at the sport and not be athletic.
Mm-hmm.
And this is why I love jujitsu. But because anybody can sort of, you know, anybody can propel themselves to a high level here with dedication and hard work versus being naturally athletic. And a lot of natural athletes can still do the same thing, even better, but it sort of is a equal playing field a lot, you know, amongst many people. But they'll land at another gym and do amazing. And then my head goes, man, if one of those other gyms treated them a little bit better that first day, they would have stayed there and been a great training partner with that person in 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
And so the way that you treat a white belt now could be the best training partner in 5 years for you.
Mm.
But
or
you, but
less,
if,
you know?
or less. Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. But you got to put that time in and that work in now. You got to adopt that white belt now. You got to treat them like gold now so that later on they're going to be that great student who's not going to leave, who's going to be loyal, who's going to compete under you if that's what you want, that's what you need, or just a great training partner to everybody in the gym. Maybe they're just so positive all the time.
Right.
But you didn't see that day one because they're like scared, you know, deer in the headlights, kind of like, I don't know what jujitsu is. But if they came back for like a whole solid month, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh man, that person brings joy to this room. That's so cool.
Mm-hmm.
I wish they stayed at our gym.
Right. And I think it's very important as an instructor and as a team of, we'll call it a team of, you know, blue belt and above. It's very important to treat anybody that walks through the door that wants to try a class very well and not to judge them. You know, if a guy is, you know, 25 and insanely athletic and looks like he has all the potential of the world and wrestled for 10 years, like you should not be treating him any better in an effort to get him to stay than a mom who's trying jiu-jitsu for the first time and, you know, doesn't offer any sort of amazing athletic prowess. You know what I mean? Like, you have no idea what a particular person can become with a year or 3 years or 5 years of training, or how bad they need jiu-jitsu, you know, because they may not go, if you don't treat them properly, they may not go try another gym. They may just decide not to do jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, very true. And you could turn them off from the whole sport altogether and they get into pickleball.
Exactly. Or karate.
Not that anything's wrong with pickleball,
right.
But it's one of the best. I think it's the most growing sport in America. So you can, and jiu-jitsu I think might be number 2 or close to it. So you can either get them to join pickleball, again, not trying to trash out pickleball, or you can show them a really good time their first week of jiu-jitsu here, and then they stay and they love the sport, and you have another person that can grow with you in the sport.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I think that takes me into some of my next questions is trying to find out the new person's why for wanting to start doing jiu-jitsu. I think that's super important as an instructor or a coach, but I think in general it's important that a lot of people know that too. Like, why is the person there? What are their goals? And maybe they don't know what their goals are yet, but a lot of people have a why, you know. Maybe it's a 40-year-old dude who wants to get in better shape. Maybe it's a mom who has been abused, or it could be anything, you know. But I feel like finding out someone's why for being there is important.
I think that's really. I've seen so many divorced dads. I feel like that's a whole topic of a podcast. Is like, how many divorced dads do you train with, and how many of them are bald and jacked? Like, it's so funny. I feel like I'm such an anomaly to the sport because I started young. I was never a big competitor. I'm not naturally athletic. Like, I don't think of the sport in a very aggressive way or a self-defense way. I just love doing it. So I don't know. People look at me, they're like, you're just not the stereotypical jiu-jitsu person I think of. And I go, yeah, most of us aren't. But, you know, some of us are, like the divorced dad who just wants that revitalization in his life at, you know, whatever age he's at.
Mm-hmm.
And he needs that confidence, whatever it is, or the divorced mom, or someone who's coming in after, having an assault experience in their life, and they want that to take that power back. Like that's super validating.
Mm-hmm.
And there's all these tropes, I guess, like things that you can predict are predictable like factors of why people would come into the gym. I just
Another
walked into the gym because I loved it.
right. Another one is the military veteran who is just searching for something, you know,
Yeah.
and there's obviously multiple organizations out there that help facilitate that. Like We Defy is a big one in the United
love
States.
love those guys.
Yeah, and there's a reorg in which is more based in Europe, but those are charities that are specifically geared towards combat veterans doing jiu-jitsu. And we at our school are a We Defy training center, and we've actually
Mhm.
had our first adult male through the We Defy program, and they will pay for training for a year in an effort to try to get that person from white to blue belt or close to it. They provide
Mhm.
the gi and no gi uniforms. They paid the academy directly to train them, and making sure that they have the right things in place. So it's a really cool thing, and that's definitely jiu-jitsu. I can't explain how exactly it does it, and I'm not going to pretend like I was in the military, but there's something
Right.
about jiu-jitsu and the camaraderie and the mutual suffering. Granted, it's a smaller scale than military, but there's something about it that speaks to a lot of military veterans too.
Yeah. It could also be they learned McMap in the Marines, or just generic combatives in Army. And I'm pretending to know that I know what these are called or which branch practices what. I only know very few of what they're called, so I might have botched all of that. But yeah, maybe they learned a very minimal amount of combatives of whatever that is in the branch that they're in, and they're like, man, that was so fun.
Mm.
Like my friend's wife is in the Army, and she just started some combative training, and she knew I've been doing jiu-jitsu forever. And the next time we hung out after that, she's like, man, I want to get into jiu-jitsu now. And I'm like, why? Like, what happened? And she goes, oh, we just started combatives. It's so fun.
That's
She's
great.
like, I love it. She's like, now I want to train. And I go, awesome, dude. Let's go. Like, here's
Yeah.
some gyms in your area. Like, let me know if you need a reference. I'll go to your first class. Like, how can I foster that relationship in the sport, or with the sport?
Yeah.
And yeah, so I'm like, if you have that much enthusiasm, what can I do to help? Because
That's
most people,
awesome.
you got to drag them to the gym sometimes. You're like, oh, come on, come to the gym. Come to, everybody has that guy. And I make fun of these people in our gym all the time where I'm like, remember when I had to drag you kicking and screaming, and now you love this sport so much?
Mm.
Yeah. If someone tells me I so want to do this, I'm like, when? I'll pay for your first class. Like, come
Yep.
on.
Yep.
Like, let's do
Let's
it.
do it. Just show up. And yeah, that's something that's been hard for me over the years, because obviously I've been doing jiu-jitsu a long time, and I've been managing or owning a gym for a long time. Is the number of
Mm,
people that tell me, hey, yeah, I really want to try jiu-jitsu sometime. And it's very difficult to not get jaded to that statement
mm.
when the majority of those people I know in the back of my mind I'll never see on the mats even once. But
Yeah,
it's like they're saying it because they know I want to hear it. You know what I mean?
right. Yeah. I don't know. It's hard. That's hard. Yeah.
So let's move on. Next question: gi or no gi first for white belts?
Ooh. Um, I'm super biased to answer this question, so I'm going to answer it, but everybody should know that I'm answering it in this way because I primarily do this type of training. So don't listen to everything that I say and take everything that I say with a grain of salt. But I think anybody should do gi first because I think it makes them more technical, thinking about why they're doing a grip, a position, and other things more than if they just slipped out of something in no-gi, and they're like, it worked. And you're like, well, yeah, but it only worked because you were slippery. And yes, that's a factor. But I think the more intentional you are about why you're grabbing some fabric or a grip, or, positioning with your hips to set up an arm bar, whatever it is. Yes, you're doing the same moves, but with the fabric, I think comes more intentionality.
Yes.
And then once you switch from gi to no gi, I think that transition is more natural than, no gi to gi. And you see so many people who go from no gi to gi and they're like, I hate the grips, I hate the fabric, I hate all the friction, and I can't slip out of stuff. And I go, yeah, but like the gi person embraces that slip sometimes, because sometimes they wish they had it.
Right. Yeah.
They're the opposite. They wish they can get out of stuff because they have been in the friction for so long with the uniform.
So I tend to agree with you, with a small exception, and this is purely from a logistics standpoint as a gym owner. And we talked about people showing up at a gym and how to know what to look for when you go to a gym, and how to pick your first gym. If you have somebody who's brand new to jiu-jitsu, asking them to drop $100 plus on a gi and a belt for a sport that they haven't done yet can be difficult. Not to say it's not to say it's completely a deal breaker for everyone, but I think for me, in an ideal world, people do no gi for maybe a few months, maybe 2 months, 3 months, to make sure that they understand, they learn the positioning, the positions and a few controls, but more importantly, they understand or realize that they like the sport. And then I feel like it's important to try the gi kind of as soon as possible after they're sure they like it. Does that make sense?
It does. I also think anything has a solution. So, and this may have come from me working with lawyers too much in the past, side by side, but everything has a solution, and everything has a way for you to win.
Sure.
You just have to think hard enough. So I think the way to go around that is I have seen this a lot lately, where gyms will have promotions of, say you sign up for 3 months, it's this price, and it comes with a gi,
right,
and a white belt. And I think those gis should be cheap. They should have your branding on it. If you're into that, right? Gracie Baja, other gyms maybe who are very much into like, I would like our branding and our logos to be representative of us inside and out of the gym. I'm not saying I agree with the requirement of that, but I can see where that comes from, and I can support that in some ways. But therefore, the barrier of entry for that person is very easy. There's maybe rental gis. I would say set yourself up for success for a business to grow from the bottom, right, which is white belt, up. And so set yourself up for success where you have rental gis. So if people come in, you have gis that you wash all the time, keep clean, various sizes of white belts that you can just take off the wall and go, here you go, no problem. Try your couple classes here, but I'll keep this here so I can wash it and I don't lose it.
Right.
And whenever you want to sign up for it after your free week, there's a 2 month, 3 month, whatever it is, special that comes with a gi. So therefore, you're creating less barriers of entry for them, and you're creating more confidence of like, oh, my gym takes care of me. Like, they're not just going to throw me to the wolves and say, figure it out, you buy the gi and you buy the belt, even though you have no idea what you're doing in this sport whatsoever.
Exactly.
And not to say that like you should only wear cheap gis, but I think just like anything else, you start with a cheap version of something in order to see if you like it.
Yeah.
So you're not investing as much. And then later on, you buy the origin gi, which is $300 or whatever. And you learn how the difference between those two brands and the materials and the quality is. And you're like, oh, okay, now I get it. I'm more invested now.
It's amazing. Yes, I agree. Like, start with a very inexpensive gi, but it is also amazing to see like a one or 2 month in white belt with a $300 origin gi.
I've seen it.
I've seen it.
Hold on. If I look up Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, On Amazon, you can get geese for as low as $45 for kids, $50 to $70 for adults.
That sounds right.
Brands I've never heard of, some brands I've heard of.
Mm-hmm.
So the barrier of entry isn't as much as people think, but it doesn't have to be as high as you've seen. Say if you follow Jocko, Joe Rogan, Lee Stump, all those podcasts, they're Origin adjacent, or at least a lot of the guys that they have on the podcast love Origin. And then you start looking at geese and you're like, oh my gosh, Origin is 250, 300 for their good ones, the axioms and everything. And they're great geese, don't get me wrong. But you don't have to buy that right away. You're not even sure if you're going to stay in the sport for 6 to 12 months.
Yep.
So buy that $50 gi, see if you like it, or talk to the gym owner. Maybe you have a repository of gis that are like, hey, we'll sell this one off for you for $20 because this belonged to somebody a while ago.
Mm-hmm.
Like encourage your students to like donate gis, to have a donate pile that you give away or sell for cheap.
Mm-hmm.
So again, you're trying to build a business from the ground up. How do you make sure that those barriers of entries are less and less and less?
For sure. All right. So I'm going to give you a question, which is going to be our next question, but I want you to have more time to think about it. So before we get to this, the question is going to be, what is one skill that a white belt can learn to go from, okay to a good white belt? Okay. But we're going to talk before that about what we feel like the first 10 to 15 techniques and concepts that white belts should learn when they start jiu-jitsu. And hopefully as we discuss those, we'll arrive at what we feel like is the one skill that's going to take, that's going to jump the white belt the largest amount. So
good question.
First, in my instruction, I personally feel like the first thing that a white belt should learn is the basic trap and roll escape from being mounted. I think it translates to obviously jiu-jitsu training in the training room, but it also translates very effectively to self-defense, bad situations, things like that.
Okay. I think guard retention is a nice one. Because I think if you're going to think about it through a either self-defense lens or through a sport lens, because remember Chris Howder says, practice sport, think street, embrace the art. I think I got that right.
I think so.
Chris, I'm sorry.
We mentioned that in a previous podcast. We really should make sure we get it right too.
Yeah. Because there is 3 aspects to it: the sport, the street, and the art. And so when you're thinking about practice street, think sport, or practice sport, think street.
All right, I got
guard
it.
Retention is great.
It's think street, train the sport, and practice the art.
Practice. Oh, got it. Okay. So
but
to train,
we got the concept across though.
Yeah, I think guard retention. If you're on your back and someone's trying to attack you, getting your feet between them and you is very important before you can get up.
100%,
or sweep them, or take them down, whatever it is, right? If you're on your back for whatever reason, you got to get your feet in front of you. And I think guard retention is just a simple way to teach people how to get their feet in front of them. And in jiu-jitsu, what I love is when people come into our gym and there's like a 3-month or 3-week or 3-month-old, whatever it is, white belt, and their guard is a pain in the butt.
Yep.
Like they keep getting their guard back. They keep retaining it. They'll invert, they'll do whatever, because all they worked on was a ton of guard retention. And the only thing this guy can think of is, man, this guy's guard is good. Well, he didn't attack you from the guard. He just didn't want you to pass it.
Right.
So it's like he hasn't even worked on attacks yet. So that's why I think that's even more, I think, of a fundamental thing in a white belt curriculum is guard retention.
I agree. That was going to be one of the ones I held back until the last minute for dramatic effect, but probably one of the most important things. I think I mentioned escaping a trap and roll escape from bottom mount. I think in general, escaping any bad position quickly and efficiently and safely is super important. So knee elbow escape from bottom side control, learning how to escape the back. I think of those 3, escaping the mount, escaping side control, and escaping the back. If you're specifically talking about self-defense, I feel like
Mm-hmm.
escaping the back is the least of those three. I mean, you may not find someone on your back with a seatbelt and hooks in very often in the
Right.
street in comparison to, the average guy being mounted on top of you or in a
Mm-hmm.
pinning side control position on top of you. But
Mm-hmm.
all of those are important, I feel.
Yeah, I think basically to sum that up is to train somebody how to get out of the worst positions in
Mm.
jujitsu,
Yep.
because eventually you're going to get there because you're a white belt, and that's not a negative to you. That's not a negative in general. That's just how that role will progress with
Mm.
somebody who is a belt or three better than you. And
Yes.
so if you work on, inevitably you're going to get to these positions, and inevitably you're going to get smashed in your guard, you're going to get your back taken, you're going to get side control, or you're going to get mounted.
Mm-hmm.
So how about we work on, when you get to those positions, at least you're not going to be afraid to be in those positions,
Yep.
and build it in their head confidence of, eventually it's kind of like you're taking the beginning and the ends of things, and how do you make them good at the beginning and good at the end of these sequences, and they're going to learn the middle at some point, right?
Mm.
Like
Yeah.
how to connect some of these things together, and that's with your teaching. But learning how to retain guard, how to escape from a really bad position are kind of like the beginning and the ends of some of these sequences.
Mm. I also feel like learning or practicing these bad positions, the mount, mount, bottom side, technique aside, the mindset and the ability to control your anxiety and your adrenaline when you're in those bad spots goes a long, long way.
Yes.
If you've never been stuck underneath someone who is holding you down essentially for as long as they want, and you're panicking and you're anxious, just the ability to stay calm in that situation is super important. Now, obviously,
Mm-hmm.
you need to be able to get out because you can't stay there forever. But the fact that you can stay calm and stay focused in a bad spot is going to serve you very well no matter what.
I agree. Yeah, absolutely.
So next on my list, as far as techniques go, I feel like after escaping bad positions, after maintaining the guard or being able to recover your guard, I feel like the next thing that you need to be able to do is finish in 1 to 2 ways.
Mm.
So for me, just like most academies would probably agree. I feel like the rear naked choke from the back and the Americana arm lock from either side control or mount are a good first thing to work on after you're learning how to escape bad spots, because you need to be able to finish the fight should there be one.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think so. Um, I I'm 50-50 on that, just because I guess it depends on their, again, like where they're coming from. Like if they are going to be competitively oriented, then yeah, teach them a couple of finishes early on. If they're the twice a week like dad that is coming in to just to like learn something right now or just stay in shape, then I would apply less submissions, because that person has less time to even learn some of the basics of escaping, or what we're talking about. What we're talking about before is escaping bad positions or retaining guard.
Mm.
Like I think if they're competitively oriented, they need to be, and eventually they'll get the submissions. I'm not saying they'll never learn submissions. I'm just saying if there's 5 things you're trying to teach them that week, I would prioritize based on their availability and based on their goals, which is hard to do in a big class scenario for sure. So if you're trying to think of like, how do I teach a whole class? Yes, but I usually have a pretty small class in the mornings, and sometimes we have brand new white belts, and I'm like getting to know them before we start doing stuff as we're stretching, and then I get to get the gist of like, all right, like you're younger, you're more competitive, let's teach you a little bit more finishes. Versus
Mm-hmm.
this guy's a little older, he's not going to compete, he has no aspirations of it, he's just thinking it's cool because he listened to Joe Rogan, and great, cool. Like let's teach you how to escape, let's teach you how to do some basic movements,
Mm.
because I think that will help him more in his journey in the beginning, at least, because then he's like, I know how to finish a Kimura, but then he'll tell me I don't even know how to get to it.
Right.
because I don't know how to pass guard. I don't know how to sweep. I don't know how to get out of positions. I don't, So again, it's all, I think, goal oriented that way.
Mm.
Not that I don't disagree with you. I think that's a good point.
Well, I one thing that I'll backtrack a little bit. One thing that I will say is that, and my students will tell you that I harp on this, especially with legs, but in all positions, control, the ability to control from those top positions, kind of the inverse of, escaping the bottom, the ability to successfully control someone who does not want to be controlled is the most important thing before we look for submissions. So if you can't quantify exactly, but let's say that my top side control, I can hold someone down that does not want to be held down, that's of the same size and same ability as me, for 5 seconds, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then that gives me 5 seconds to try to attack them with an arm lock.
Yeah.
If I practice my control more and now I can hold somebody down for 30 seconds, that gives me 30 seconds to attack an arm lock,
Also true. Very true.
So the better your control is, the more opportunity you're going to have to apply that submission. Not necessarily for white belts, but for upper belts, that's something that I try to harp on with leg entanglements. It's like, listen, the heel hook or the straight foot lock or the toe hold, great submission, but as people are just learning those foot locks, whether it's at blue belts or purple or whatever it might be, a lot of people for some reason look at the foot lock or any variation of a lower body submission and they look at the limb that they're breaking. So let's say a straight foot lock. They're holding on to, they've wrapped the ankle in a deep grip and they're going for it, but they have no solid leg entanglement attached at the knee. They're not controlling the knee and they're not controlling the hip.
Or they don't know what sequences to get out of it if it fails to stay on top.
Right.
Like maybe the other person knows a lot of foot stuff and then you're just stuck with like, okay, it's not working. Now what? And then they get out and now they're on top. Yep. It's kind of like learning an arm bar and then it fails and you just stay on your back.
Right.
And then they pass your guard. It's like, well, you need to stay in a good guard. You have to get your guard back. You have to get to the next thing. Maybe the arm bar doesn't work and it goes into a sweep. Like,
I feel like in general, though, there's this weird thing, not everybody, but early on in the leg locking process where people feel like if they have a hold of someone's foot, then they can get a lower body submission of some sort. That would be equivalent to you holding on to someone's wrist and having no control of their elbow or their shoulder and saying, I'm going to armbar this person. Like, no, you have to isolate the other two joints in order to be able to break the foot. Same way with the arm, So to think, oh, I've got a wrap on the foot, let me just bend this in the wrong direction and it'll work, that's not how it works, even though, but almost no one thinks that from an arm bar. They know, okay, I need to get my legs in position. I know I need to have the elbow line. I need all these things so that I can apply the straight arm lock. With legs, that seems to be something that takes a lot longer for people to understand. The control needs to be significant for it to work on someone who knows what they're doing.
Yeah, I mean, again, coming from a gym that we're very IBGF focused, so in the rule set at least. And so it's sometimes we don't do a lot of leg stuff until people are higher in the belt system. And so I like to use like analogies of other attacks just so they can understand the concept of it, of the leg attacks, at least while we're working on it. And Dean Lister, of all people, teaching legs, and we're going on side quests, by the way, people. Like if you're this far into our podcasting, episodes, and you don't think we're going on side quests, buckle up.
We are. 100%.
The 4-wheel drive car has just left the main road, and
this is stream of consciousness.
Yes. Dean Lister, I've been to many of his seminars, and many of them had his teaching, obviously leg stuff, because everybody says, you're Dean Lister, please teach us leg things. You kind of pioneered a lot of that back in the day. And so he would teach a lot of leg stuff. His controls, the reasons why, sequencing through other leg controls and all the other things, as you would expect a leg-centric seminar. But he also teaches, like, if this attack doesn't work, I do this to stay on top, or I do this to stay in control. I do this to make sure that, I'm always in a place where I can do the next thing easy.
I love that.
It's not just like, here's an attack, okay, great. Here's another attack, okay, great. And everybody's like, but those two attacks didn't work for me when I rolled today. Like,
Right.
well,
And that,
I don't understand. And then they pass my guard after it didn't work.
yeah.
Like, he'll be like, oh, I'll teach you this attack, and then when it doesn't work, you need to stay on top. And
Yep.
here's how you do it.
Yep.
Which I think is a better way to approach the legs versus here's just 7 leg phrases, right? Like, was it 420? No, not 4. Was it 70, 30, 50, 50? I forget the numbers here. 50, 50, I know. Ashi, inside, outside Ashis, saddle, all these positions. You can learn the phrases
Mm-hmm.
and what they are, but you don't know how to get from one to the other.
Right.
You don't know how to stay in control.
Yep. We actually occasionally will do one of a drill that I've seen him. I watched a reel of Dean Lister. He has a drill that he does at his gym where he has everybody set up, a leg position. Usually I believe it's 50-50 to start with. And he will just simply call out a leg entanglement position, and the room will, as quickly as possible, try to switch from whatever entanglement they're in to that entanglement. And it's a good way for the instructor to realize everyone's knowledge level or lack of knowledge level on recognizing the name of the position, but also like how efficiently, with the minimal amount of movement, can they get from one position to the next,
Yep.
I think both of those things are important. Efficiency of movement, regardless whether it's legs or any jiu-jitsu, is super important.
Agree. Yeah.
But to your point
Everything
about
also comes in.
coming up on
Go ahead.
top, though, as Dean, as you mentioned, Dean talks about, that's hugely important. Using any type of position, whether it's lower or upper body, and realizing the moment that it's likely to fail, but ending the position in a dominant spot is, I think, super important.
Absolutely. And I think there should almost, it's hard to teach it because it's also different, but like, there's a whole seminar topic, I think, on like, when do you give up on something and go to the next thing?
Yeah.
And that applies to somebody passing your guards, you passing somebody else's guard, you attacking versus defending them attacking. Like, when do you give up on whatever you're doing to go to the next thing? And it takes a lot of experience to know when that pass isn't working anymore, so you can go to the next thing. Or when that attack isn't working, but you need to give it up and stay on top.
Yep.
Like,
Absolutely.
that's a whole other topic that only comes from experience, and it's hard to explain. But yeah, we should probably go back to the white belt topic.
I have one to two more subjects on the white belt thing, and then we'll transition into a quick update on flow sub only. But this one's funny. I'm gonna say the question first, and then I've got a comment, and then I want to hear your thoughts.
Okay.
How do you recover from a frustrating class? And then that question leads me to imagine, and I'm sure I've been there, I'm sure you've been there, just about everybody listening has probably been there, when they're on their drive home from jiu-jitsu and there's just no radio going. It's just pure dead silence, and you're just staring out your windshields in disbelief or just and that sometimes is, even if it hasn't been a frustrating class, it's just been a hard class or whatever.
Yeah.
That whole silent ride home from jiu-jitsu.
It's real. It's real.
So any tips in general about how to handle a class where you felt like you were the nail all night, where, sometimes you're the hammer, sometimes you're the nail. What are your thoughts on that, and any advice you would offer for someone who feels that way as a new practitioner?
Great question. And I think, gosh, that has a lot to do with ego too. I think there's a lot of overlap there, because your reaction to something is based on your ego most of the time. And your ability to, I think, control your ego in a good and bad way, you can't leave it at the door, but you need to control it, will be your ability to be mad after class or not. Like if I got my butt handed to, I don't know, it's so funny. Like again, I am an anomaly that should not exist in jiu-jitsu in a lot of ways. Like I get, say I have a class that everybody beats me somehow, I had a bad day, can't focus, everybody passed my guard, everybody submitted me, I'm the nail. I'm still going home, like blaring my favorite music, having fun. You know, like my brain goes, well, I'm still alive. I got jiu-jitsu today. I'm not injured. Awesome. Sweet.
Right.
But that's just me doing the sport for so long, having no emotion attached to losing.
Well,
And so it's hard to train that in people. It's hard to be like, you losing is normal because everybody wants to win. Obviously, everybody does.
I've said that as sort of like encouragement for some people that I felt like needed it at the time. But an example would be, say it's a 17-year-old high school wrestler, and he's insanely successful in the field of wrestling, and he walks into an adult jiu-jitsu class and just gets submitted, numerous times by some 40-year-old dude who does not look like he should be submitting him. And I can tell just by looking like that semi-fragile ego is really taking a beating right now. And I've said to those types before, like, listen, if you came in here and you wiped the floor with everyone, there really wouldn't be any reason for you to be here, because there's nothing that you could learn that would improve your abilities, right? So the fact that you're walking in here and you are experiencing failure is a good thing, because you have all the tools to improve very quickly in this sport, as long as your ego will allow you to do that. So you need to understand that you are going to fail, because this is not, yes, you're versed in grappling, but you're not versed in this particular type of grappling. So there's going to be failure, and you should embrace that fact, because it just means that there's a higher ceiling than you realize and a lot more growth potential than you think.
Yes. But sometimes, and this I think comes with an experienced coach, is you can tell somebody as much as you can tell them, but then they have to learn it and experience it themselves in order for it to actually download into their brain and process.
Oh, absolutely.
Like I can tell you as a white belt as much as I can, until I'm blue in the face, that this is all part of the process, that tapping is natural. You losing all the time is natural now. And eventually you'll develop into a way that you'll be able to beat everybody. And I can tell them the example of, if you're the best person in the room, it's just boring if you beat everybody. But they won't get it until they start getting better, and then they start to beat everybody, and then they realize beating everybody is so boring.
Yeah.
Right? So until then, they're going to look at you and they're like, yeah, sure. And they might get it, but they don't get it sometimes.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Anytime there's room for potential growth, and you can recognize that, like, there's a lot that you can learn, especially if it's something you enjoy doing, like that should be exciting. It's like going to college. Like, oh, there's all this stuff I need to learn. That's not fun. Jiu-jitsu at least is fun. And you can recognize, oh, I need to learn all these things. This is exciting. And then you have pockets of success, but then you have huge areas where you can improve. I think that's amazing.
I think it's fun. I think the whole thing is a process, and it's fun. But sometimes you don't know the process until you went through it.
Right. And most of the time you don't, experiences and wisdom, you can tell somebody, but until they experience it for themselves, it's hard to agree. It's like the higher colored belt saying, man, I wish I was a white belt again. Well, every white belt that hears that's like, what in the heck are you talking about? I can't wait to get a colored belt, But there is something to be said about being the white belt with not many expectations placed on your shoulders, and you can just come in and have fun and train and learn. Whereas once you are deeper into the art, it's more work.
It's a lot of work, and not even just like physical work. It's a lot of mental work, learning, cultural, all the other stuff. How you, because your relationship with the sport's going to change over time. You're gonna think about it differently from when you first start to blue belt to purple belt, black belt. brown belt, everything. And having the ability to adjust over time and stay positive with it, right? Like white and blue belt is the total honeymoon years of jiu-jitsu. Like everything's so fun and exciting.
Mm.
But then just like any other relationship, you got to realize how you can keep that going in a sustainable manner.
Well, I think that it's hard to keep that going at a fast rate because white and blue belt, the growth in the sport comes so quickly. The progression is drastic for quite a while, but then it slows significantly to where, you know, you might spend a year at purple belt and you only feel like you're a little bit better, you know, whereas you spend a year at white belt and you go from 0 to a year in, the change is incredible, you know?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And that's hard to even evaluate while you're doing it because everybody is also getting better in your gym in the same rate.
Exactly.
So yeah. And then it's the whole discussion topic of should you compete? It's like, well, maybe so, because that might be a way to basically evaluate yourself objectively versus the people that you've been coming up in the sport with who all progress in the same rate as you.
Mm-hmm.
Or faster. Maybe they have more access to it. Maybe they don't.
Exactly. Well, apparently you're the absolute master at the segue, because my next question was going to be, how soon should you compete as a white belt into your jiu-jitsu training?
Ooh, I was reading your mind. That's what was happening. I feel like we've done 4 episodes, 5 episodes. I don't know. Like,
yeah, that's pretty
at this
quick.
point, we read our minds together already.
Yeah. So for me, like
question.
with anything, it's like, oh, it depends, right?
Yeah.
And it depends on your physical ability, your mental ability, your size, your conditioning, your what type of tournament you want to do, like what your goals are. There's so many variables that I don't feel like it's very easy to answer that question. But at the same time, as long as your expectations for competition are in line with what your coach tells you, then you could compete as soon as you want to a certain extent, you know, and your coach will tell you whether he thinks you should or not.
Yeah. I think just like in a tournament, everything is based on what the referee says. Like everybody can fight the referee, and even if the referee's wrong, the referee says it's usually law, right? So jiu-jitsu comes with a lot of respect of authority, and which is ironic given our conversation before this podcast.
Yeah.
I think I said something before we started this podcast of I don't quite believe everything that somebody in a point of authority tells me,
Right.
but jiu-jitsu has certainly helped me manage that.
Right.
But yeah, you got to believe your coach, and your coach has the best intentions for you, and he or she is evaluating you as you're growing, knowing your goals. You have to communicate with them just as much as you communicate with anybody else in your life. And you have to tell them, I want to compete, or I don't want to compete, or I want to start coaching if you're a brown belt, but you don't compete. And they'll move you in that direction of your goals. And I think that's a sign of a good coach, to see what your goals are and keeping you on the path.
Yes, I agree. One thing I would say is don't let anyone talk you into competing if you truly don't want to. You know, if you're kind of on the fence about competing and people kind of push you into doing it and give you kind of the courage to do it, that's fine. But if you're starkly like, I don't want to compete, and you have your reasons why, there should be no reason why you should if you really don't want to. So yes, in my personal opinion as a coach, I feel like everybody should try competition, at least, you know, once at white belt and once at blue belt at a minimum. But it's absolutely not necessary, especially if you have no interest in doing it.
I think everybody should compete at purple belt, blue and purple. White belt's great. Honestly, white belt is like a really fun belt to compete in. But given stylistically, I think you might run into people who are just going to stylistically run through you, like a wrestler, judo person, whatever. And there's always an opportunity, a possibility, right? Because maybe your coach isn't a wrestler. Maybe he's not a judo person. Like they just have stuff that you don't know. But I feel like at a higher blue and purple belt level, everybody sort of starts to just equalize the skills, and everybody's just doing jujitsu.
Yes.
And at that point, it just becomes more fun, I think, to compete is at those higher belt levels. Once you hit brown and black, people start owning gyms or sleeping at gyms.
Yes.
And maybe to more of extent, maybe purple belts nowadays because the sport's growing and growing. But I think blue purple is so fun to compete in because the stakes aren't as high. The people are just at your level still. Like, again, it's representing you at age, belt, weight, all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So, and people can still represent you at a black belt level of weight, age, and belt rank, but the skill gap can be much drastically different.
Right, because
Versus
it's a
blue
long
purple.
path, and your path may have been drastically different than that other person's.
Yeah.
I agree with you. I think that white belt competition can be a wild card that should be kind of prepared for anything. Blue belt, it starts to normalize a little bit more because everyone has some experience. But I think competing at white and blue and purple, as long as you can find, similar competitors, I think that's super important. If someone were to say, okay, you have to give me a certain number of months or years that you should train and then compete, I would say you should train for at least 3 months, and have attributes. If you're, purely more of a cerebral type grappler, maybe wait a little longer before you do your first competition just to kind of develop a game. But honestly, it's really up to the individual. I would approach your coach and say, hey, I'd like to compete. Do you think I'm ready? And let your coach kind of make a recommendation from there. Or even better than that, my what I would appreciate most as a coach is for someone to come up to me and say, hey, I would like to compete in 3 months at event XYZ. Do you think that's a good idea? And can you help me get ready?
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know?
That's a good one. Yeah. Again, it all, I think, stems from your coach.
Right.
Because you can, and like, I think your coach is pretty much the foundation of everything, like how you learn, where you are in your game, how you progress. They dictate the culture in the gym. There's a lot that you need to lean on your coach for, and they know that. And so, as long as you're good at communication, I feel like they'll guide you in the right way if they're, a good coach.
I agree. I think, again, that comes back to finding a gym, right? That you need to find a gym that has a good coach, a good culture,
Yeah.
and you need to make sure that those two things mesh well with you and your personality as well.
Yes.
If you have aspirations of competing down the road, then going to a strictly self-defense school that does not really welcome competition training might not be the greatest idea. But
Right.
but that might be the perfect gym for somebody else, So
Right.
neither one is incorrect. It's just a matter of choosing what fits you the best.
And I think on that topic, people should somewhat embrace or not embrace, but like don't criticize the blue belt who realizes what he actually wants in the jujitsu, his relationship with the sport, and he wants to compete more. And your gym may not offer a lot of that, so he jumps ship and goes to another gym.
Right.
Like, I wouldn't be as like if he communicates and goes, "Hey, I just don't think this gym is right for me. As I'm growing in the sport, I want this, this, and this, and I think this gym is much better." And if that's a conversation with your coach, you go, "Hey, shake my hand, great, awesome. I'm glad I could have helped you throughout, your first couple of years."
Right.
If I don't have the curriculum or the space to help him completely to his goals. Right. What happens a lot is people just jump ship and don't communicate. I think that's really the foundation of everything. If people don't communicate, everybody's mad with each other.
Right.
So if you talk to your coach and go, "Hey, I want to do this. This is my goals. And like, I need help with this. And if you cannot help me, then I'm considering this." And it's not an aside from you. It's not a slight to you, but it's like there's a gym down the road that's super high level competitors, and like a lot of my friends are there, and like they're loving it. So like, I'm just trying to talk to you before I just like go over there.
Right. Well, I think, yeah, I think being in the right gym is important. Also understanding that might not be the forever spot. Like for me, yeah, like I don't like it when people jump from gym to gym to gym to gym,
Yeah,
but they might have a reason why, right? It might be, and it might be
yeah,
something completely unrelated to jiu-jitsu. It might be a family thing or a work schedule thing or they've moved a lot or whatever. So you can't
mm-hmm.
really, you just need, like you said, you need to communicate what your needs are because the gym is providing a service.
Right.
A lot of instructors lose sight of that fact that people are paying for their expertise and we're providing a service. And if they, yes, there's some loyalty that goes both ways, but at the same time, it does narrow it down to being providing a service that they are paying for. And if they feel like the service that they're getting either is not good enough or it has what their needs are have changed, then
Mm.
that's okay, you know.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's very true.
The last thing I will say about white belts or anyone competition related in general, this is something that I've harped on with anyone who has huge aspirations, because there's plenty of white belts with huge ADCC aspirations as well, or whatever whatever that high level tournament might be that they dream of competing in one day.
Mm-hmm.
I do not mind and I welcome high aspirations, but your efforts need to match your goals, is how I phrase it. So
Yeah,
if
I think
you,
that's a whole coaching taught. Like that can literally that one like sentence could be a whole podcast.
yeah, I just feel like that's how I sort of gauge people. I have just because someone says they want to do ADCC trials someday and they're a white belt, I don't like them any more than the white belt next to them that says I'm just here to train and have a good time. Like
Yeah,
I don't have a preference between those two people. But if you are the person that said I want to accomplish X, Y, and Z and you're not putting in the work that I feel like it takes to get there, or it's obvious that it takes to get there, then I'm not a fan of that.
I mean, Alexi says it pretty well. My instructor, where he says, "Yeah, like I don't want everybody to compete. Like I'd love it if you tell me you want to compete. That's awesome. You may not like me as a coach afterwards because there's an expectation to that.
Mm-hmm.
Like you might like me less because I'll have a higher expectation for you.
Yep.
And all of a sudden you're going to be like, wait, why are you different? It's like, well, you gave me a new goal and I'm trying to get you to that goal.
Mm-hmm.
And so like, he's like, I warn you, he's like, anybody could, if the whole room wants to compete, he goes, fantastic. In fact, he's like, wouldn't want to see anything more than you succeeding at your goals, but you may not like me
Right.
once we start competition class then.
Right. And then if once you do say that, it's kind of like that you see in the movies where the Navy SEALs are going through buds and stuff. It's like just ring the bell and this could all be over. Like just say
Yeah.
you don't want to do ADCC trials anymore and we can go back to how it was before. But
Yeah.
again, your efforts have to match whatever you say your goals are or change your goals.
Yeah. But that's communication. You communicated that you wanted X. And so your coach goes 10-4, heard you loud and clear.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I 100%
And
agree.
yeah. And I just think it's funny. I've seen it so many times. Like we've had people who are like, yeah, Alexi's very different when you want to compete. I'm like, he sure is.
As he should
But
be.
as he should be.
Yep.
And you should be appreciating it. And they do. And it's like, but they've seen him on both sides now. And I'm like,
Mm.
You don't remember when he wasn't like that. Like he was more militant back in the day.
Mm. Tom is the same way, and he'll be the first to say that. Like if anybody that tells him that they have huge. He'll ask them, "Are you a competitor or not?" And if they are, yeah, they immediately get treated differently, and they're expected to be there. So it's not just the class that's different; it's the attendance expectations are different too. Especially if you want to compete at the highest level, like, oh, it's, my cousin's birthday today, so I'm not going to be there. Well, that's not how it works if you want to be, an ADCC champion.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. I mean, people sacrifice a lot to do that. So yeah, because the coach is sacrificing just as much as you're sacrificing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like his time and his efforts, and he's probably planning your next training session. He's probably doing X, Y, Z.
Mm-hmm.
Like if he's going above and beyond. So at the end of the day, it's like, effort in, effort out.
Yep. And you also have to remember that when you're competing, generally speaking, you've got your academy or your coach's name on your back, and you're a representation of him or her in your teammates in your academy when you step on the mats. So, not to over dramatize that as, a white belt doing their first competition, but as far as, if you're going to go compete at a high level and you haven't really been training much for the last 2 or 3 months, like, that's not fair to your coach or your team if you haven't put the effort in. But yeah, you want the glory of, that competition victory, which that's not fair for you to put your coach's name on your back and not train hard enough or as hard as he or she wanted you to, and then go out there and perform poorly.
Yeah, and I think a good summary of a lot of that is, like, jiu-jitsu is such an individual sport, but also a team sport. And oftentimes it is so individualistic with your efforts. And, like, you have to drill somebody, but, like, it's not like a basketball. Like, if you come from basketball, it's so team-oriented.
Yes.
And if you don't know that, or if you come from that and you go to jiu-jitsu, you think it's so individual-oriented sometimes. And therefore you're like, oh, well, I want to win, and I want to put the effort in. But there is a lot of team to that too.
Oh, 100%.
And that includes your coach, that includes your, the badge you're wearing from him and everything else. So yeah, it does revolve somewhat around, like, your team, as well as individual.
Agreed, 100%. And I want to make sure I make something clear too, is as a coach for me, if you've been training for 6 months and you decide you want to compete and you put the work in and you go out and you perform poorly, I don't have an issue with that at all.
Yeah.
What I have an issue with is if someone does not put the work in and then goes out and performs poorly, because they could have done much better had they put the work in that I probably had asked them to, or people, when you worked hard for something, and when you didn't. So I think that, I think that's
like this
huge.
weekend, Austin Miller competed in ADCC PANS, and lost his first match by advantages. So I'll give him a lot of kudos for, no points were scored in either direction. Good for him for defense. But if he won his first match, he would have gone against JT Torres.
Yep.
It's like, well, through no fault of your own and through every effort that you make, give him hell. But you're also looking at JT Torres at the end of that match.
He's one of my favorites too, by the way. He's amazing.
Yeah, but that's what you get in Masters too.
Yeah. Who did? We'll finish out the podcast with just kind of random discussion here. Did you have any other teammates that went down and competed?
We had Nikolai. He won his first match and lost his second match. I don't know why he lost his second match. I haven't investigated that further, but I do know that. Also, Ramon. The pronunciation in Portuguese is Ramon. He went to compete as well at black belt. He's a smaller individual, I think around 150 in that range. I think Nikolai is like maybe 180 to 200 in that range, brown belt. Austin cut down, I think, to 185, whatever that weight class is there. So yeah, we had 3 guys from our gym go down to ADCC trials. Yeah, they seemed to have a lot of fun. They weren't bummed at their performance because it is PANS.
To PANS, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had just
Yeah.
Meg from our academy went down. My wife went down to coach her, and my daughter came up from New Jersey to coach her, and she got bronze at the brown belt adults division,
Oh, cool.
125. She had a really fun match in the semifinals against Lauren Sears, who is a super talented. Lauren's from 10th Planet Austin, has been on ADCC, who's number one, EBI. She's done all that stuff. Definitely a solid veteran. So Meg faced her in the semifinals and just came up a little bit short. But she had a great run before that. Really nice back take submission against I don't know who the girl was. The name, I didn't recognize it right off, but Flow Grappling was kind of following her around. The other girl, for their whatever documentary. So she must have been pretty good, and Meg was able to get the submission. And then Lauren, was super tough. So I think that was the third round. There was 12 of them all together, so it was a pretty big division for women, for sure.
Good for them. That's awesome that the division's growing. I mean, I've seen that a lot where divisions are, in the women's divisions, it's just growing and growing.
Yeah, it's definitely women's growth in the sport has gone up exponentially over the past 5 years or less. I think you're seeing in general, though, an evolution in the sport for even with the men too. There's so many talented guys coming up through the ranks that it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough to win at a high level going forward because there's a lot more talent than ever now.
It's so hard. Yeah, people, I feel like I was saying before, like competing at a purple belt level was so fun because stylistically you're not going to get that like outlier that's going to judo throw you to the ground a bajillion times. Like everybody at that level back, at least when I was competing, was kind of just doing jiu-jitsu. Like it's just who's better at the techniques, right? In a lot of ways. I know there's more nuance and people will comment about, no, it's more this and this, and that's fine. But like, I don't know, I feel like purple belt was when I started to have the most fun competing. And then promptly at brown belt, I started realizing that people's skill gap of my 3 to 5 times a week versus their 2 times a day, like the gap started widening there. And as much as I could try to stay in shape and everything else at brown belt, I was like, all right, like I got beat a little hard today. Okay, cool. Next competition, still got beat hard. Okay. And then at black belt, I'm like, oh, now I'm competing against gym owners.
Right.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah, no, there's and it's changed even more. It's kind of evolved again now to where you're seeing 18-year-old, 19-year-old brown belts, and you're seeing 19 and 20-year-old black belts. The moment that their age is old enough to get the belt level that they're at, they're getting it because they've been training since they were 10, and they were a 17-year-old purple belt that was wiping the floor with everybody, and that at the age of 17 they've already been training for 7 years, twice a day. It's I feel like once you're competing at brown and black belt in like IBJJF or ADCC stuff, those people, there's nobody in those divisions that are like, oh, I'm going to try competing. It's like they're serious about competing, and there's no longer half the division that is like, oh, let's just see how it goes,
Before you can have a division of like so many people, and half of them are like, oh, like 3 to 5 times a week people, like they try really hard and then they'll give you a good match. But if you're like a high level guy, it's you'll still run through them, but like given like it'll be a good day. But nowadays you sign up for a division, like you can have some like really hard matches every time.
Oh yeah.
Like every match is like the finals from like 5 to 10 years ago. Like nowadays every match could be that match. Just given the level of jiu-jitsu sometimes. And that saying that makes me sound like I'm discouraging competing a little bit.
No, I think it depends what tournament you do too. We're talking about IBJJF Pans. that's, other than Worlds, that's pretty much the highest level you're going to find for IBJJF. And then obviously you can go to ADCC as well. But we're not talking about doing a tap cancer out or a flow sub only or something like that. That's going to be a lot more of what we're talking about, where there's a couple guys in there that want to test themselves, and there's a guy in there that has huge aspirations, but it's not full of 10 guys who are all professional competitors,
Yeah.
So you're gonna find what you're looking for at like a smaller tournament like that, which is why I said this last episode, I am insanely biased, but I feel like flow sub only is a great first competition for people. There's no points to worry about. You just go in and you do jiu-jitsu, but then it's also round robin for both kids and adults. So win or lose in your first match, you're going to have more matches if you want to. You're going to have a minimum of 2 gi and 2 no gi, but you could have, 4 of each if you want to. And if you're super talented, there's absolute. So that's, that's where the big guns all kind of filter in and stack themselves up against each other.
Yeah. Round robin, small tournaments of round robin, man, is so useful and great for people who just want more reps in, because you're talking about the barrier of entry is probably going to be low to mid range for price and high for the amount of matches and mat time you'll get. And if you're you can think of that as a tournament that is a tune-up tournament, a tournament that warms you up for a bigger one, or just you just want more mat time at that intensity.
I agree. I think you mentioned this last time, but I think I would love to see Austin Miller in this absolute division. I know your teammate Nikolai is, perpetually competes in it. I hope to see him as well. But I haven't seen Austin recently other than his super fight, and I think seeing him make a run in the absolute division would be a lot of fun.
I think we should keep calling him out in a very friendly way. And I'm saying this because I'm his teammate, so I love him to death. Austin, if you're listening to this, I love you. But I think and given he has 3 kids, runs a restaurant, and coaches his kids' soccer team, so I have no doubt that he is doing some very important things in his life that are, much more important than competing sometimes. But I think if he comes out, he'll surprise everybody.
Yeah. But we also know that he's ready because, as you said, he just did pants. So
yeah,
we're as of the date of this recording, we're only about less than 3 weeks away from the flow sub only. So clearly wouldn't be that much effort to stay ready.
True. And we are 3 days after pants, 2 days.
Yep.
So yeah, he is in peak condition already.
Ready to go.
Ready to go.
Get him signed up. Find out his smooth comp and sign him up for him.
When we post this episode, tag him.
I will. I absolutely will. All right, sir. Why don't you let everybody know where they can follow you, and we'll wrap this one up.
Absolutely. Again, thanks for having me on and for dealing with my ramblings and my side quests.
Oh, that's what makes it fun.
Yeah, if you've been listening to this so far and haven't learned that that's what we do, then shame on you. But yeah, my name is Ben Moore, like the paint company, and you can find me on all platforms as Active Beer Geek.
Awesome. And I'm Hayden. You can find me on Instagram at prof_HaydenBJJ. You can follow the Flow Sub Only. Please look for the podcast, subscribe to the podcast. We're on YouTube. There's over 125 underground matches on that platform, so make sure that you follow that and subscribe as well, because there's constantly new content coming out. Ben will be recording the absolute semifinals and finals at the event coming up here in a few weeks, and those will be going on there as well. So make sure you follow and subscribe.
It's gonna be a good one. 3 weeks.
All right, Ben. I will see you soon.
See you soon, Hayden. Thanks.
You're welcome.